Hey everybody, it's Ron, and today I'm going to be talking about the second pulp novel featuring Doc Savage called The Land of Terror. I did a review of the first novel, The Man of Bronze, a little while back, and you can find a link to that video in the description or head over to the newly created Doc Savage playlist that I have. So, just to back up for a second, I thought The Man of Bronze was a really good introduction to this character, but I do feel like the author, Lester Dent, was still finding his footing a little bit with his formula for these pulp stories, but it set up so many things with Doc's father and the camaraderie of his five companions, and I think those elements were pretty much perfected in this second novel. Everything improves in this one. The action, the story, the humor, it all works. I was a little nervous that this book wouldn't have any carryover or any mention of the first adventure, and I was pleasantly surprised that it did. His father's death actually plays an important part in this book, so that was cool because I know these are pretty much standalone stories, but there should be some sort of through line, so I was glad to see that in a few spots here. The death of Doc's father is still really fresh on his mind, and it shows because he's pretty ruthless in the beginning of this. The whole story centers around this stuff called the Smoke of Eternity, and Doc's friend Jerome Coffern is murdered and the body is dissolved with this mysterious Smoke of Eternity material. This puts Doc Savage on the trail of five men who committed the crime, and this part reminded me of the first Captain America movie, The First Avenger, where Steve Rogers' friend dies and he ends up chasing the killer through the streets to find out who sent him. It's pretty much the same thing here, and I wonder if this book was the inspiration for that scene. But it was pretty exciting, and Doc ends up killing all of them. I'm told in later stories that Doc doesn't really kill, but I guess the reason he does in these early pulps might have something to do with the anger he has pent up because of his father's death. So after this chase, Doc finds out that the man behind this murder calls himself Carr. And from here, Doc gathers his companions to help him find out where this Smoke of Eternity stuff comes from and how Carr got in possession of it. I think the actual adventure Doc and his gang go on in this novel is a lot more interesting than the first one because they wind up going to a place called Thunder Island and they encounter actual dinosaurs, which is a cool change of pace because although Doc is a very extraordinary guy, he's also a pretty plain character as far as appearance goes or the description of his appearance. It's not like he has a costume or anything flashy, so it's nice to have a more fantastical element like dinosaurs in this one to give Doc and his men an interesting set piece for all of the action. I think Lester Dent does a pretty good job explaining why these creatures did not become extinct on this particular island, so that was interesting to read about. The banter between Monk and Ham is actually really great in this book. This was written in 1933, and I didn't expect to laugh as much as I did when Ham makes fun of Monk, and I say that because if you read or watch other forms of entertainment from this era, it's very different than modern comedy, but in this case it holds up really well because it's just two guys making fun of each other and giving each other crap. It's very entertaining and adds a nice tension release. Another one of Doc's companions, Rennie, gets a couple chapters dedicated to him when he gets separated from the group and has to survive while coming into contact with more than one type of dinosaur. We're also introduced to a new character named Oliver Wording Bittman, who Doc visits because he knew Doc's father and eventually tells Doc about how he saved his father, so he ends up joining them on this adventure. It turns out that Bittman traveled to Thunder Island with Jerome Coffern and another guy named Gabe Uter, who they first suspect is Carr, but I knew that would have been too easy, and what really gives it away early on is how over the top Oliver Bittman is with his cowardice when they get to Thunder Island. So I did suspect that he was Carr early on, but even though it was somewhat predictable, the way Doc Savage puts all the pieces together when he proves Oliver is Carr is really well done and almost makes you want to go back and read it over to pick up on all of the little hints. I do wish Carr was a little more fleshed out as a villain, and I know pulps don't really delve into character development that much, but I guess what I mean is maybe it would have been cool to get a better description of what he looked like when he was giving orders to his henchmen, but I think all Lester Dent says about him is that he wears a mask so no one knows his true identity. But I do like that Carr was so good at acting, not even Doc could figure out that he was Carr right away, because he did have a bit of a blind spot when it came to the stories about his father. So yeah, although I didn't think Carr was the greatest villain, it almost didn't matter because the adventure they go on is so fun in this one. So yeah, I really enjoyed this novel, and once again, it's really just a breath of fresh air to read these old stories because they're not pretentious at all. It's just a short, well-crafted story filled with action and cool locations, and you can't really ask for more than that. So be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content, and check out some Doc Savage novels because they're quick reads and they're really fun. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, it's Ron here with a quick announcement. When I started this channel, I was reading and reviewing the Dune books and other sci-fi related material, and most of you might not know that I'm also a musician. So when I was reading these sci-fi books, I started to get inspired and decided to make my own soundtrack to use for my videos, and now I'm excited to tell you all about the first volume in the Ron Reviews original soundtrack collection. This album includes the first 17 tracks featured on my channel, and it's available now exclusively on Bandcamp. Be sure to check the description of this video for the link to the album. Thanks so much for the support so far. I know I'm just starting out, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am. So check out the original soundtrack Volume 1 on Bandcamp. This music is great if you want something moody and atmospheric to listen to while you're reading some science fiction. I think you're going to love it. Thanks.